as I said, I want to make sure everyday life you can get through. You're not in chronic pain. You're not in pain. We do get little twinges here and there, but that's fine. And then I need to be like, okay, so you want to go to the gym, you want to look good, or you're playing rugby, or you want to run a marathon, or whatever it is. I then need to know, like, everyday life needs to be sorted. Then I move on to the next phase. So when it comes to like the movement, one thing people have to realize is that pain's inevitable, and your body will be a little bit of pain here and there, and pain to different people is different things. The only problem is that trainers but mainly therapists have scared people about pain and movement. It's like, oh, when I do this, it hurts. Well, we can't do that then. Don't bend over. You got to think about this. It's like the body's supposed to move fluidly. It's supposed to just bend over. You're supposed to flex the spine. You're supposed to do X, Y, Z. So people are scared of moving half the time. Well, actually, I can tell you something right now. If something hurts, if a movement hurts you, that's the movement you should do. But we have to find why that movement is hurting you. And we have to just do a different adaptation and build back up to that movement. But, we should be able to bend over with our back bent and pick your child up. That shouldn't at a certain weight. We should be able to do that. And so we have to learn we've got to basically go, right, so where are they in the movement? What's hurting them? We need, someone knees hurting. Okay. And they've been told to stop doing their sport they love. The thing is, if you tell someone to stop doing something they love, there are two things will happen. One, they'll ignore you and just continue down that road and be in pain and try and find someone else who can fix them. Or they're going to stop doing the sport they love and they're going to be bloody miserable and go down a very negative route. They might start eating themselves happy, drinking themselves happy. So because they've got a bit of a knee issue, you've gone, don't do that. They're unhappy. And now they've got other health issues because a lot of therapists don't even train themselves, which baffles me, absolutely baffles me. Talking about health and fitness and telling people to stop moving when they don't even know how to move themselves. That's one of my biggest gripes. I can go into a rant about that later. But so with movement, I have to make sure they can do their everyday lives first. Then I have to build upon that to get them to do what they love doing and what they want to achieve in life, because we can all achieve really cool things. And I think everyone should strive to do cool stuff with their body, see what their body can do. But first we just have to get a few things right, again, lay the foundations to then move forward.
And thank you, Nick. And there are any lifestyle, I don't know, triggers that you might share with our audience that actually will further trigger the dysfunction in movement?
Well, I don't know about this lifestyle, but the first thing I always start with is the breathing. So you can call that lifestyle, you can call that training, or whatever.
It works perfectly well with lifestyle.
The first thing I always look at is the breathing. Now, because what it's like, everyone talks about primal movement oh yeah, you got to be able to squat, you got to be able to lunge. It's like, well, the first thing you have to be able to do is breathe, because you die. I've never heard of anyone die because they can't squat. But if your body cannot breathe, can get oxygen in the body and transfer that oxygen, you are going to die. Your body will adapt to any way it sees fit to make sure you can breathe. Then your body will adapt to make sure that you can eat and see over the horizon. That is us. That is literally, because if we can't do that, we die. So our body will adapt our whole entire shape, our posture, our movement. It will adapt everything to make sure we can stay alive. Full stop. So breathing goes back to, as I said, the mammalian brain. It goes back to our survival instinct. So if we're breathing around 21 to 24,000 times a day, you can imagine if we're doing that incorrectly, the effect that it's going to have on our body. So what I want to look at is to make sure our breathing mechanics, and when I say breathing mechanics, are functioning properly. I'm basically looking at the diaphragm and the thorax. I want these two structures to be efficient in their movement, because if the thorax and the diaphragm aren't functioning, you can basically say goodbye to your body's function. Because with that, the shape of your thorax will change the way that your pelvis sits. It will change the way that your thoracic spine, your cervical spine, your lumbar spine. If your thorax is out of whack, that's going to literally change the shape of your whole body. Then if your diaphragm's not functioning properly, that doesn't, that again, that changes the shape of the thorax, which then changes the shape of the body. But also we're looking at a stabilization of the body as well. We're looking at blood flow. We're looking at oxygen exchange. The amount of oxygen we get into our body comes through that. We're looking at the blood flow, the lymph drainage. And as I said at the beginning, when I went down some deep holes last night, learning about the other connections the diaphragm has into the brain, into the back of the neck, which is just, and the jaw, trigeminal nerve, the eyesight, all these crazy things, which is a massive rabbit hole I'm going to be going down. But to begin with, going back, it just changes the shape of that thorax, changes the way that we get air into our body. So then our body's going to change things. And as you know, and this is just an overall insight into everything, then if your body is trying to get the air into us, what we can then do is go into this state of hyperventilation, which then turns us into a state of sympathetic. We turn on our sympathetic nervous system, then that jacks up this ventilation system again. And it's this vicious circle of going back, around, of just basically being stressed out. And then we have all the things which then the sympathetic nervous system does, which aren't good either. So from a mechanical point of view, we have to look at how the thorax and the diaphragm is making the body, the shape of the body, and then the shape of the body dictates the movement. The physiological side of the thorax and the diaphragm is the air exchange into our body and out the body, and also the fluids around the body. And then we've got the psychological change of then the neural change of the autonomic nervous system. But then we also then have the psychological mental side, that if we're in this sympathetic nervous system, that jacks up our anxiety. But also if we were to look at the low level stress of the cortisol, and the way that the cortisol is actually, we have a lot of more receptors in our frontal cortex for the cortisol. So then that's when we get this kind of scrambled, foggy, can't make decisions kind of thing as well. So with just breathing, I hate saying breathing because it turns into this, people think it's going to be hippie and talk about meditation. I'm not. As we said, we have this massive change of things we have to look at. And just from that one movement of breathing, everything I just said, it affects every system in the body.
Nick, what I want to point here out is, how is this, what you just said, important for every single client who comes at the gym, walks in at the gym, stressed out, busy job, running business. It is what you said is like, anxiety and depression is not a Prozac deficiency. It's similar here. This is not deficiencies of squat or deadlift that you are where you are. But start with this prime movement, as you said, and I loved here that you name breathing movement, because I often tell clients as a lifestyle suggestion, go and walk, because while you're walking, you're breathing and you're moving and you're allowing your body to, support all the physiology and biology really of human being. So it's a great tip for everyone, right? When you walk in, you're searching for body transformation, or you're searching for health, start from breathing and see what your trainer does about it, right? If it's opening you up or it's closing you back with a bench press.
Basically, yeah. And that's the thing, when someone walks in, so breathing drills, I don't know, breathing drills aren't just what people think they are, of just breathe, just meditating or something at the beginning. breathing drills are technically, it's something more about putting your body in the correct position, like I said. So how it affects someone coming in, if someone is highly stressed and they've had a really hard week and everything, all their neck musculature is all tightened up, their diaphragm is contracted, it's stressed out, then they're going to have this kind of like wider, the ribs going to be a bit more flared out. You won't be able to brace as well. Your pelvis is going to be out of shape. But your pelvis is going to basically affect the lower limbs. Then you're going to have the way the thorax is sitting is going to affect your shoulder motion. So your shoulder pain and your shoulder range of motion, the fact you can't shoulder press above your head, might be coming from the fact that you're highly stressed, your breathing mechanics are slightly off, your thorax is holding a different shape, so therefore you can't move the scapula around the thorax, therefore you can't get the humerus on the scapula properly, making some kind of pain. Now that could be, so we got to, as I said, it's the positioning of the thorax and the position of the skeleton to give those muscles ways of working. And so that will affect stuff. Then you have, as you said, if you're highly stressed out, we're not going to be getting oxygen around the body. We're not going to be able to get oxygen into the cells as efficiently as we should be able to. So therefore, you try and train, you'll be knackered and tired very quickly. So you won't be doing as many reps. And if you can't do as many reps, you get where normally you might do 12 reps, this time you get into 6 or 7, you start running out of oxygen, you start to get more tired. Then what happens is your technique starts to go a bit more, and you have a few more injuries because you're training when you're so stressed, you can't get the oxygen, you're tiring quicker. So therefore your positioning and your technique is going. So therefore we get a little, you get little niggles and everything. Your focus and concentration when you're highly stressed, like I said, we're not getting oxygen to tissues, creating ATP, your nervous system, and that needs energy as well. Your brain, as I said, the stress in your brain is going to tire you out. It's going to, have that issue. If you're not sleeping, that's going to affect how we're training as well, the stress and everything. So when you think about the stress and the breathing, as I said to you, the two main things, it is that it's the position that you're in. So like I said, with the rib cage, if the thorax, if your diaphragm's contracted through stress, what's going to happen? You're going to have your ribs are going to be flared, and you're going to put into, and the thorax is going to be tilted back, which is then going to create, the ribs won't be able to move. The thoracic spine will be stuck. So you'll get this upper back pain maybe. You won't be able to have a rotation. Your upper back might be tight across your back. Your neck might be tight because now what's happening, your ribs should have this like expansion, the lateral expansion at the side, and at the top, they should expand. So when trainers go, don't breathe through your chest, we want to breathe through our chest. We don't want to breathe through our shoulders. We don't want an elevation of our shoulders, what people do, but we actually do want our upper ribs to move. Yes. So we want the ribs to expand. We need the ribs to move. So the first thing I look at is always that rib movement. Because if the ribs don't move, this is where people get confused now. This is where people don't quite know this. If the ribs don't move, the thoracic spine won't move. So if you're trying to create extension and doing all these thoracic mobilizations, thread the needle, foam roller, preacher, you do all these kind of things. If your ribs aren't moving, if your thorax is not moving, hasn't got the elasticity that we want, your thoracic spine won't move. And then you've got all these muscles in your neck, your scalenes, at the back of your neck and everything else, which if your ribs aren't moving, your body has to create some way of getting the air in. So what's it do? It'll do two things. It'll either lift up the upper ribs, as in completely upwards. It won't have this nice little kind of like expansion. It'll just have this lift, which will try and create the room for the air to come in. So that will make all these things kind of tight. The other thing it will do, it'll create you kind of like, as you breathe, like if you ask someone to breathe in, you sometimes see them lean backwards. It's because if they haven't got any extension in their thoracic spine, because their thorax is stuck and leaning back already, one of the better ways of doing it is, instead of doing this, they've created this movement to get the air in, which then gives them a low back pain or stiffness in their lower thoracics. So even just looking at, and so if you try and do that, you're coming off a stressed day, you've been at a desk all day, you're breathing, for the last few days, you've been stressed. These things start happening, or if it's just chronic stress, you've got a stressful job and you've got these backaches, you've got this upper back stiffness or the low back stiffness or the neck stiffness or pain. Without looking at the way someone is breathing or correcting that position, you're going to end up being limited in what you can do in the gym. All these people spending hours trying to find ways of squatting or trying to find ways of getting someone to do an exercise. If we revert back to this positioning, as I said, if the thorax is in the right position, if the thorax is in the correct position, that will put our head in the correct position and our hips in the, it all kind of stems from this thorax. Then our hips will be in the correct position, and you'll find it easier to then coach. Your clients won't get so stressed because, you know, every client gets frustrated when they can't do something. It's just life. It's human nature. So then everyone's happy. You correct the position, you get someone out of pain, their movement improves, and everyone's happy and everyone's a winner, because it's bracing. You know, when it comes, it's stability. If we can create this pressure system, which is breathing inside us, if we create that and we improve that, what then happens is we have axial stability. And then once we've got, axial, basically we've got our spine stable, we've got our rib cage stable, and we've got our pelvis stable. If we've got these structures stable, everything else will move much better. So that's kind of like, in a nutshell, of why I'll think about the breathing and much, much more, and how breathing comes into lifestyle. Because then if you're positioned better in this breathing pattern and you're more stable in certain areas, become more mobile in others, pain starts to go away, then you start getting happier with life because chronic pain sucks. You can start doing the things you love. And it just kind of like, you start having time with your family, you're not in pain. And so hopefully that kind of answers your question.
Yes, it's answering, and definitely, breathing would be my top choice as well. I would probably have a little bit less explanation to that from biomechanical perspective, but my explanation would be in terms of how the energy is flowing, right, from the root until your top chakra, right, the spirit chakra, right? If we're going to talk from side of Ayurveda, right, or how is supporting your organs, how is supporting every single cell detoxification and flow. This would be my explanation, because I think many people stacking, and I think stuckness often comes in this area. And this is where all things are happening, right? And then we have to look at also how organs and body part are connected, right? So, and diaphragm is really lying in the middle of us and is connecting that organs from lower part of female body up to our heart, then to expression of ourself through the thyroid, your authentic voice, right? Then you've got the joy of being human and anything that comes outside of us, right? This is how breathing comes in my further explanation, right? So we are having very much two ways of explaining why breathing as a movement, it is important. And how does it sound? A little bit more colorful in a different way, right, Nick?
Oh, it's exactly how I feel about it as well. And as I said, that's why breathing's so important, because it covers everything. And going on the energy flow, as I said, it cuts the body in half. So that's the blood flow and the lymphatic system, basically your fluids travel through the diaphragm, not around it, it goes straight through it.
Yes.
So if you have and even your esophagus, so your stomach. So everything important runs through the middle, through openings of your diaphragm. So if your diaphragm is dysfunctional in some kind of way, then you're going to affect your digestion. You can have acid reflux. You can have, issues with, your calves are always tight. Oh, so your calves are holding water. Well, if the fluid going through, if there's a blockage, the diaphragm is contracted and it's holding it, and we're not creating the pressure system to pump it back up. Could that be an issue? As you said, that kind of goes with the energy flow, because, chi, energy, whatever you want to call it, there's something going on in us, spiritual or not. There's some kind of energy. Like, I was at uni yesterday, and the tutor pulled up this fantastic study. I'll try and, I don't know what it was. She sent some pictures of it, and it was a study of a boy and a dog. And because, when you walk into a room, people's energy suck you or they pick you up. So we had this dog, and so their heart rates when they were apart were erratic. Just kind of like, it's not erratic. They weren't the same. But when they came together and the dog laid on the kid, the heart rates actually synced into exactly the same beat. And that's why we're trying. So talking about energy and everything, there's something going on in us which connects this energy and this flow. But that breathing, if you have electrical currents which aren't flowing correctly, if your nervous system is thrown off because muscles are tight and you're in pain, if your fluids aren't flowing through the body correctly and you're not getting nutrients to muscles or nutrients through the nervous system, you've got cortisol building up in your brain, because you're highly stressed, and you've got all this kind of stuff going on. Like you said, how is the body supposed to have this nice flow of energy, feel good, when you've got all these blockages in us? So again, that's what breathing, that's why you can talk about this kind of stuff for ages. Mechanically, it's so important. Physiologically, it's important. Mentally, it's important. And also spiritually, it's important. It's like, if you're not thinking about this in some sense, like, you don't have to be, this is what I mean. Breathing got a bad rap because of yoga, not because yoga's bad, but because it went on that kind of hippie kind of side of things, which is still not a bad thing. But people saw it as in a negative image. Where, as we just said, both of us, breathing just kind of brings back, so much to us. Like I said, it's our most natural, most primal instincts. Everything's connected to it. So when you think of it like that, we need it for survival more than anything. Every tissue in our body needs it. We need fluid pump. How can we not think about it?
I think, Nick, you mentioned this this bad rep. I think this also comes because for some reason we are, as a society, maybe not everyone, and again, I don't want to generalize, but we're so afraid of Western approaches of medicine, finding the root causes, working with a whole human being, just the body's parts. But I see that more and more people are open for this type of way of thinking, which is how medicine and art started from Hippocrates many, many years ago. So I think, slowly, I think we are on the move to hopefully small change or bigger change, whatever change is going to be. But I think many, many people need this type of approach, because some form of approach from allopathic medicine did not work, and here we can find maybe solution for them, right? Nick, let's talk here about core. That is my my question here. I've sent you a few questions before, and I'm sure when you saw this, you were a little bit like, oh yes, that's a good question, right? Because people are saying, let's train core, and then they come in and they say, let's do more sit-ups, right? And we both know that sit-ups is not, core is not about sit-ups. Let's explain people what actually core means, or means, and what are your 3 tips for people who would like to improve the core, what they're supposed to do?
Okay. For me to answer it, it's kind of hard because I don't quite believe, I use the word core more for a terminology so I can just get people's buy-in, or at least they know I'm talking about the midsection. But I don't see there's so much of being a core, because when you look at how, again, the diaphragm, hands down, you need it working. That to me is the core. It's what I call the daddy. It's if your diaphragm's not functioning, you can't stabilize it correctly, efficiently. You can't stabilize the body. The diaphragm actually contracts before we move. So if you're to raise your arm up, the diaphragm contracts. It does what, it's not just a breathing muscle, it's also a stabilizing muscle. So as soon as we move, the diaphragm and the TVA actually contract, wait like 20 milliseconds or something around 20, 50 milliseconds before we actually raise our arm. Those 2 muscles will contract. Now they're contracting to stabilize because the diaphragm's connected to the lumbar spine, and it's contracted and it's connected to the ribs mechanically, and it's got a central tendon, but then it has all the visceral it's attached to as well, as you explained earlier. So it kind of, so it's there to stabilize. Then you've got the TVA, which is there it's connected. It's like a belt around us, which is connected as well. Now, the things I would say on this also people don't include in the core, that word core, is also the internal obliques, because they're actually attached. They're very deep muscles, and they're actually attached, entwined into the TVA. Now, and the thoracolumbar fascia actually as well. So we've got this kind of massive fascial belt coming around us. I'm just trying to talk about this in the sense, because what I'm trying to say is it's not really necessarily a few muscles, because when we're looking at our body stabilizing through motion, we've got this TVA, which is going to hold our pelvis in position. It's going to pull our pelvis back. So not TVA, sorry, TVA and the internal obliques are going to help put us in the position. So it's going to stabilize our pelvis.
You're hitting the point, Nick. You're hitting the point, Nick, because you are hitting the point, because to be honest, I didn't expect you answering this sit-up part, bending forward and back, not at all. You actually hitting my intuition what your answer is going to be. That's why I have asked this question to take away from most of people understanding of what is core. When you're asking a trainer to train a core, trainer as yourself, they're not going to lie you down on the Bosu or Swiss ball to do the sit-ups, right? They actually going to work with whole your body from the bottom to the top to set up stability and stabilization, plus the breathing, plus maybe glute muscles, the small little bits to put you together, so you're kind of working as a whole. So you kind of hitting the point, Nick, here.
So because this is when I talk about breathing drills. Breathing drills aren't breathing, because if you don't breathe correctly, you're still given dysfunction. So the obliques, the internal oblique, is such an important muscle, because that's it's kind of part of these hamstrings which holding us up, but the obliques also helping us hold ourselves up, and these obliques are going to put our pelvis and our ribs in the correct position to then be able to move properly. So it's like I said, it's all about positioning. So we need the diaphragm to be working to create pressure in the system, which is another, you can go into that, but basically the way we brace, the way that our body creates tension in the body is creating different pressures in the body, because we need to be able to be efficient in movement. We need to be able to create more pressure in us to stabilize us. So we need the diaphragm to be working there. The TVA needs to be working to do that. So that's correct breathing will manage that. So then we've got these obliques that need to basically hold our rib cage and hold our pelvis into a position as well, as you just mentioned. So all that's connected still, but then we've got, to me, if we can sort out, if you have really strong glutes and lats and this connection through the thoracolumbar fascia, most people, if you get the connection between the glutes and the lats really bloody strong, you'll normally find back pain will dissipate very low or at least to nothing. Like normally if someone's got an SI joint problem or stiffness in their back or an SI joint problem, especially, you'll normally find that one of the opposite, if you check the glutes and the opposite lat on both sides, one of those will be weaker or not working efficiently. And that connection through that back is what helps stabilize the low back. This thoracolumbar fascia pulls to stabilize all this. And the fascia goes up into your traps as well, your mid back. It goes up higher, the thoracolumbar fascia. It's not just low back. So you've got this fascia working as well to stabilize things like the lumbar spine and the SI joint. Then we have the obliques, which are holding ourselves in position. So when you're talking about the core, we're kind of, I don't like it because we have all these things holding us in position. So when we talk about the core, to me, you're talking about making sure these muscles can work together in certain positions on one leg or in a sagittal plane or rotational plane. So for instance, someone holding the plank, if done correctly, you can probably hold properly for about 20, 30 seconds max. Absolutely. Like I can get someone shaking in 10 seconds doing the plank properly, because what's happening in the plank, we're basically we're creating the pressure in us to hold us in the position of keeping if you look from like a horizontal to vertical, our head will be over our thorax will be over our pelvic cavity. So you have these things all level. You're then going to have the serratus firing up. You're going to have your pelvis tucked under, your obliques working, and you're going to be creating this tension. And most people can't hold that for more than 10 seconds without some of these things going out of position. So always people holding them for like 60 seconds at the end of a session or in body pump classes, it's a load of crap, because that to me is what's missing, is this whole body core is kind of like a whole body tension. As I said, you can't have a core without your glutes and your lats firing. You can't have a core without your adductors and your external obliques firing. And what I'm talking about is these there's systems within the body which work to create movement, create stability, and to dissipate energy. So, really, to me, the word core is completely crap, and it should just be, we need to be working on stability throughout the axial skeleton. But also, if you want abs, call them abs. Just, I want to do ab work.
Yes. This is what I was actually thinking. Most of people who is asking about core, they asking about the visible abs. Yeah. And that is a
completely different thing. Completely different.
Yeah, exactly, because there are different reasons why the fat stays there. Obviously, more optimization of movement and everything that we discussed, and breathing is going to have impact on visibility of your abs, for example, by lowering the cortisol, right? Which then does not have storage around your belly as much, right? But this is completely different conversation. So I'm very happy that we kind of manage, and you manage beautifully to shade away the idea of core. So when people see in the core class, right, they actually need to revisit what do they want here, right?
Exactly.
Nick, is there any connection? I think you mentioned a little bit about digestion and sleep, but I will ask once again this question. Is there connection between the way we sleep or digest food, just an example, and how we actually moving, or how we move?
I think sleep, I think it depends on how bad it is. Like, I think sleep does get a bit too much of a bad rep. Because
Underrated?
oh no, I mean, as in, I think when it comes to the movement, when people go, like the amount of times I see it in clinic, when I see people saying, "Oh yeah, just change the way you sleep." It's like, seriously, like if I'm sleeping on my front and I've got my head turned like this all night long, then yeah, that's not going to be good for anyone. But if it's horrendous, then yes, it's going to affect us. It's going to affect the way you breathe in your sleep. It's not going to be great. But that's only 8 hours. There's a lot of other stuff we're doing for the rest of the day, or even less than that. People sleep for 5 or 6 hours. So looking at how, again, we breathe and we move throughout the day will help that. So the breathing also helps the way we sleep. Because if you get used to nose breathing, that will, when you're asleep, if you wake up and your mouth is so dry, like really dry, and it's like, oh my God, then that means your mouth breathing massively, which means you're not getting oxygen properly within your body, which means you're not going to wake up feeling that great. If you wake up and your mouth's not bad, then you know you're breathing more for your nose. Now, your sleep position is going to affect that. And I think that's going to be more important than actually the position to everyday life and vice versa. Except for, as I said, if it's really like lying on your front and your neck turns to the side of 90 degrees is like hands down. Every other position though, I think is a bit, I think you'll be fine. I think it's more what you're doing on the days when you're awake and you're moving and everything else. If you can move your neck absolutely fine throughout the day, you can rotate your spine, you're breathing correctly, I don't think sleep's going to be too important to that as such. It will help it. Like if you have got back pain or if you have got pain, moving yourself in a position which feels better when you sleep could help. But again, I'm not sold on it 100%, but it's not like any studies on this or nothing. It's very much of a observation. People just go, oh, it's the way you sleep. But I just don't think it's too much.
As you said, if we thinking of movement, breathing, that breathing is a movement, because it's a muscle that is involved there. Actually, this will have effect on the sleep, because will have effect on whole body physiology and biology, right? So I don't think even we need studies here. It's just a common sense, and it's probably similar with digestion of our food, right? I have many clients who tells me, I have a constipation, and I said, do you move? And they don't. They beginning to move, and suddenly blood flow is enable the liver and all digestive system to be optimal, and they beginning to digesting food better. So I think one thing comes from the other things, but maybe because maybe sometimes people don't think that way because it's simple, right? And then is how we started our conversation. We're starting to search for more and more and more, which yes, it is important, and that is why I started to practice functional medicine nutrition. Sometimes you have to dig deeper, but you need to have also the basic foundations. You have to move if you want feel better. You cannot just keep taking supplements, magnesium or whatever. That is going to help you, but if you move, and that is what I stated on the course, my online course that I am just about to launch at some point, that if I had to pick one thing from all this lifestyle thing or not lifestyle thing, it would be movement. I think the benefits of movement on our human body is this just what we meant to do. I don't know, what would be yours if you had to pick? Nutrition, movement, food, sleep, or whatever. I don't know. Do you have any favorite one?
No, we're supposed to do everything. We're supposed to move. And when you talk about movement, I'm not even talking about training. I'm not even talking about doing anything like that, because that's something completely different. But we are supposed to move. We're supposed to walk. We're supposed to walk long distances. I don't mean just, we are made to either walk for like 10 hours, or we're made to sprint away from something in a short time. We're not made to jog.
I'm laughing
that's why everyone,
because that's what my little daughter Kiara does. She's running all the time.
Yeah, it's you either walk or you sprint. You don't do either way. You kind of go vroom, or you walk for a long time. We're not supposed to jog. We're supposed to just pick things up. We're not supposed to be bench pressing. We're not supposed to be squatting. We're supposed to just literally pick things up, put them down, reaching above our heads, just doing everyday stuff. So movement, as you said, like walking is a big thing, like for digestion. Like I can guarantee you, if you're constipated or you don't have, your bowels don't work that well, if your nutrition's on point, it's probably your lack of movement, lack of rotation, lack of blood pumping for the body. If you don't move, you don't pump blood. Well, obviously you do pump blood or you should die, but as in you don't pump enough around the body, you don't get it really flowing around the body. You need it going through the guts. And that's where the sympathetic nervous system comes in, because if you're highly stressed all the time, you're breathing incorrect, you're highly stressed, then you're basically shutting the blood flow down. So what's walking? Walking is a very parasympathetic state. So now you're calming down, you're relaxing, blood's now going back to the gut. So that's why if you can go out, especially in these times, make sure you're going out every single day, get some daylight, get some fresh air for like an hour walk at least. Get that walk in. Try and relax, have some good music on, podcasts, or have a laugh. What you'll find is you'll go for a walk, start to relax, sit down on the bench, just breathe for 5 minutes, just relax. And you'll probably get home needing to poop, because you started to relax. The blood starts to go back into your gut, starts to digest food a little bit more, and then all of a sudden you need a poop. And that's the thing. Movement just creates this whole movement balance in the body, breathing, movement, and relaxing. So when it comes down to, if you want to go through life fit and healthy, we have to, stress is good for us, but it's also, obviously, as we know, it can damage us badly. And it's a case of balancing the two. Everything's balance. And the only things I would say that we need to make sure we can do is we need to breathe correctly, we need to get our sleep, and we need to move, and we need to balance our stress. The best people, the best sportsmen out there, the most efficient people out there are the ones who can switch from stress and parasympathetic.
Yes.
They're the ones who can go through like that. You watch sportsmen, they were like, let's look at Powell, fastest man ever. He's like joking around. He's like, yeah. And then all of a sudden, he's like, straight in, boom. And as soon as he wins, it's like, yeah. You look at SAS guys, they'll be in a really high stress situation. They can just calm themselves down, react to what they have in front of them. So that's what we have to do in our life. We have to find this balance of, okay, I'm not going to tell you not to be a CEO or a lawyer anymore. I'm not going to tell you not to have 5 children. That's all your decision. But just know it's going to be fucking stressful. So where is your de-stress? Where are we going to put into your life the balance of where we can calm you? What is calming going to be? Training. Is training going to be out there? Is yoga? Is going for a 20k run? Is lifting a 200k dumbbell? What's your outlet? Where's that peace of mind? Where's your happy place? Where's your time alone? And these are the things I think people are missing in this day and age of this grind. People, you know, and if you want to achieve great things, you are going to be stressed, but we just have to make sure that you can switch. Like my wife's very good at it now, and it's taken a long time to learn how to do it. She's a very successful businesswoman, and she's gone through very stressful times and illnesses and everything through stress. But I'm not going to sit there and tell her to quit. I've actually pushed her forward because it's not a case about quitting. Too many people in this lifetime are too easy to quit. It's about learning how to switch off, how to bring, you know, sort that stress out, sort the anxiety out. We've all got like anxiety. We all get the stress. We all get the anxiety. We all get down at times. We all get sad, demotivated. How do we manage this? And that's the thing. Not many people have the coping mechanisms to actually deal with stress, because stress is not the bad thing. Stress is not the devil. It's our ability to cope with said stress, which is the devil. Stress can kill you. Literally, hands up, can fucking kill you. But it's not stress itself. It's your ability does not have coping strategies in place to handle that stress. And that's where I think a lot of trainers, they'll tell some 25-year-old trainer will just say to a CEO with 5 children, oh, you have to relax more, or you just start reading or do it. It's like, you got to be a bit more imaginative, and you got to get a bit more into someone's mindset to be able to create, because de-stressing is different for everyone. Everyone's coping mechanisms are different to everyone. This goes back to what we said to begin with. You got to kind of know people's histories, their mindsets, because like I said, I've sent 2 or 3 clients now to go and see therapists, like shrinks or therapists, and stop paying me. And I said, look, I need you to go and see these people first, because we can't go further. I can't take you any further until you've sorted this stuff, because something back here in the brain is causing your mid-level, is causing your low-level stress, which is causing our low-level inflammation and our anxiety. Something's causing that. We've done what we can, but I can't morally take your calories lower. I can't push you harder in the gym. I can't help you. And I've had people go away and come back to me because they've dealt with it, or they've now got coping mechanisms to deal with it. Because that's the other thing. I know we're going to topic a bit deeper here, but that's the other thing as well. People don't realize it's okay to have these feelings, and we all get these feelings and everything else. And it's not a case about fixing ourselves. It's a case of getting coping mechanisms of when these feelings or when these situations arise that we have within ourselves to deal with. So I can't actually remember the question. We're going off topic, but
I think it's all relevant. You know, we're talking about the parasympathetic nervous system. I just only wanted to mention that is the system that works at the night, and we are, especially what Nick wanted to say, for the last 2020 and 2021 is continuing. We all in that more sympathetic mode, which is triggering our nervous system into fight and flight response when we are constantly stressed. That's why he said, go out and have a walk, because walk is switching your parasympathetic nervous system. So you have nice balance between both of systems, so you can relax. And I agree with you, Nick. We cannot take from our life, if we are trying to achieve something or either not trying to achieve something, we cannot take pain, sacrificing maybe hours we don't sleep, or difficult moments, life moments, right? This is life. But what we need to put in on the buffet of the lifestyle tools we have available to us is how we are coping with stress, and what we do, and how we are aware that actually stress is affecting us. Because I think many people are like, when I'm asking question, how stress affecting you? Oh, I'm fine. I said, and that's what I've heard from one of the functional medicine practitioners on my education journey. When people answering you, I'm fine, actually there are those people who are needing your help, because management of that is not meaning suppression and saying I'm fine. Maybe they are not aware of effects of stress, internal or external, right? We need to also say there are different ways that body can get stress, right? We are all a little bit different. So I think all what you're saying is very, very relevant, and I hope people pick in little bits for them. Nick, that's what I picked from one of your Instagram posts, I think. You said that for a long-term health and fitness, we need 4 fitness qualities. And I will just go read those qualities, but please just give few lines of description. What did you mean exactly? Mobility and stability, capacity, strength, and body composition. I really like the set that you've got here. Give us a little bit view.
Well, mobility and stability straight up is going to basically mean that our joints and our movement is efficient without pain, or limited pain. As I said, I don't want to go through saying you should never be in pain, it is whatever, but limited pain and efficient movement for what you want to do. If you want to be a power lifter, cool. We only need to hit 90 degrees, sweet. We need to be stable in the legs. If you want to train on ninja athlete, whatever it's called, there's different things. So basically whatever we need to achieve what you want. Then you need the capacity. So fitness, we need the capacity, the aerobic capacity to be fit and healthy, to fight low level inflammation, to be mentally strong, to get oxygen around the body, low blood pressure, resting heart rate, all this kind of stuff. Basically, capacity is your health, your fitness. Then on top of that, we have, strength.
Strength.
You need strength. Now, strength, strong muscles, like there's so many studies out there now saying that, a strong grip is one of the best things for health longevity. You've got strong, the biggest killer is hip fractures for older people. Now, if you got strong around your hips, more mobility, more stability, you wouldn't fall over, and you're stronger. You won't have so much of these issues. You wouldn't fracture your hip, even if you did. If you did, being strong and mobile and a bit stable, you wouldn't fall over as much. But then, even if you did, being stronger would help that. Also, strength training increases your bone density, so less likelihood as you get older, especially females.
Yes.
Training weights helps bone densities. Now, so the big killer is hip fractures. So now if you're 60, 70 years old and you've been training for 20, 30 years, the bone density is going to be higher. You're not going to be as weak and falling over or less stable. And if you do fall over, your bones won't break, and you're going to be more, and your muscles are going to ligaments are going to hold you in place. So strength training is very important for long-term and longevity. And the other things that having muscle does, as I said, again, low grade inflammation, it brings down, and metabolism and all this other stuff. So having muscle is fantastic. Then you have, what was the last one? It was
body composition.
Body composition. If you're overweight, and then a day, I'm a big believer. I don't care. Yes, it's all about body positivity, but at the same time, there is unhealthy. And when you get to the point that your fat is unhealthy, if you're limiting your movement, if you can't walk properly, if you've got back pain, if you've got all these other things, limiting your movement and range of motion because you're overweight, that's an issue. Then you've got things of low grade inflammation, because you're going to be highly stressed. You're going to be stressing your organs. You're going to be stressing your immune system is going to be low. So you're going to have disease. Then you're going to have things like osteoporosis and things like that. So all these things are basically going to kick you in the ass when you're older. Yes, you might be, find yourself attractive. Other people might find you attractive, but health-wise, it's not good. Then we also have that fat in its own self is an endocrine cell. And then it basically is going to produce inflammatory markers. Inflammatory markers, okay, we won't go into this, and Daria can do a lot better explanation.
It's a long story short, Nick. It's
You can do
another
it,
podcast here.
exactly, and you could do that way better than I can with your functional medicine stuff, way better. But all I'll say on that is inflammation is what leads to all diseases.
Yes.
Every disease out there starts with inflammation. So, you know, you can go into autoimmune diseases. We can hit into, you know, basically straight up cancer. We can throw all these things at you and say it's inflammation. So, you know, brain, they're talking about Alzheimer's and all this, inflammation. Everything comes down to inflammation. So if someone's body composition is not sufficient, you're basically kind of asking for disease. So
yes.
If you want long-term health and fitness, if you have all these things work together to give us health and our fitness, and then once you've got these at a good level, that's when we can go, right, what can we do with our bodies? What can we achieve? I want to do some cool shit with my body. I want to run across Patagonia. I want to, you know, do 3 marathons in 3 days. I want to, you know, whatever it is, do an Ironman, you know, when I'm 50. Okay, cool. But if you haven't got these kind of things in you, if you haven't got the capacity, you'll get injured because your body will get tired, your technique will go and you'll get injured. If you haven't got strength in the ligaments and the tendons and the bones, you could get stress. That's why people get stress fractures in their tibia and that, because they haven't got the bone density, because they've gone from doing nothing for 30 years to then starting running on the streets and wonder why they've got stress fractures. It's because you should have been slowly building stuff up over years and being strong. So all these little things, ligaments and tendons snap because you haven't built up the strength. So you got all these things where if you want long term, you need to get this under your belt. Then you start to, okay, what can we achieve? But that's why I hold those 4 things in place for long term success.
Yes.
Because I think without one of them, something will collapse. Something will break.
I think is perfect, and I think that's actually what science says. That's what human feeling will also confirm, right? To build up that way, instead of just going straight into one on the other one, or prioritize one on the other one. I think they all very important. And actually what I love,
they all work together.
And they work together. Yes, it is the same as human body. Yes, you cannot just separate brain from your gut. We know that they are connected. You cannot separate thyroid from you know, female hormones. They all working together, right? Then they connected back to brain. What I think is amazing, Nick, that you mentioned, and this is another topic, another discussion, is also how it's important that female lifting weights, and that they should not be afraid of lifting weights, especially those generation of female, probably my age, 40, little bit higher, who have been growing in this idea that this is bad, this is going to make them bigger, but actually they are hitting age 50, they're hitting menopause, and they're waking up with like a sudden gain of fat without the lean muscle mass, and that is predisposing them to so many negative health effects. Nick, I will be wrapping up here with my last question. Tell me, what is that just one thing you could advise everyone to do if they are thinking to improve their and optimize their movement, body movement?
Improve their breathing mechanics. As we said, it's basically, and when I say breathing mechanics, is rib expansion. Just if everyone's confused, look it up or whatever, but we want our ribs to be moving, not belly breathing. We want our ribs
you're not breathing
to be
that, you're expanding in and out.
And if you can increase that, you'll feel a lot of things in the body be better.
Fantastic, Nick. Thank you. How can we find you? Where are you?
I'm the two easiest places. Also, so I have Nick the Rebel Coach _ Rebel Coach on Instagram. I have my website, fitnessrebels.co.uk, and then I've got my podcast, which is Fitness Rebels Radio. So they're the 3 places that you can find me.
Fantastic, Nick. Thank you so much. I think it was very deep, very lots of explanations, lots of great knowledge, lots of woo-woo-wawa things that are now and not anymore woo-woo-wawa, right? Like you said, it's not anymore hippie to breathe well. I wish you all the best for the rest of the day, and happy New Year as well, Nick. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me.
No problem. Take care.